civil party, and you may proceed. Deputy Co-Prosecutor, thank you, Mr. President. And Mr. Witness, before the break, I asked you a question. That you actually went to work at the Spin Shrine work site. Could you elaborate a little bit further what kind of work that you involved in the Spin Shrine work site, and did it have any connection to the Tribunal Dam work site? And so we actually built a dam at the Spin Shrine work site, and in fact that dam was linked to the Tribunal Dam. Question. And what was the purpose for the construction of the Spin Shrine Dam? And no, I don't know the reason for its construction. Question. Let me return to the Tribunal Dam work site. Can you tell the court how many workers were on site at the Tribunal Dam work site? And there were thousands of workers. Questioned. And were those workers a mixture of male and female, for example, and their age range? Can you elaborate on that? Answer. The workers were between 18 years old to 30 plus. They were in mobile units. Question. Were they mainly men, or they were a mixture of men and women? There were both male and female workers. They were male and female youth workers. That's what they used to call at the time. Question. Did the worker have the right to choose the work that they did, or they only had to follow the work assignment by their respective unit chiefs? Answer. No, they did not have any choice. They had to complete the work assignment by unit chiefs. Question. Did anyone refuse to carry out the work assignment? And if so, what happened to them? Answer. No, I do not know if there were anyone who dared to refuse. Question. In your response to the lawyer for civil parties, you said that you were required to carry 3 cubic meters of soil per day. You also added that certain workers in certain groups had to do 3.5 cubic meters, and even up to 4 cubic meters per day. Can you tell the court why your group was assigned 3 cubic meters each, and why in other groups they had to do 3.5 cubic meters, while the other groups had to do 4? And I was in a group with less than the regular manpower, and we were assigned less than the regular manpower units. Question. And what is the difference between a regular manpower group and your group? For instance, does that refer to members of the group due to their personal strength, for instance? Answer. My group were selected from the so-called rear battlefield, while the regular workforce groups were already assigned to the front battlefield in terms of engaging in that kind of work. Question. Were there any groups that were assigned to carry less than 3 cubic meters per day? Answer, no. Question. And in doing the 3 cubic meters of soil per day, what kinds of tools or equipment were given to your group? And the only things that we were given were baskets, carrying poles, and hoes. Question. Were heavy machines used to aid your work? Answer. No. The things we had were the hoes. Question. So, does it mean you only had carrying baskets and hoes to complete the 3 cubic meter work assignment per day? Answer. Yes. We had to use the hoe to dig the soil, and sometimes we had to use our hands to put the soil onto the basket and carry the basket to dump the soil at the dam. Question. And were you able to complete the 3 cubic meter work quota on a daily basis? Answer. I don't understand your question. Question. Allow me to rephrase my question. You stated that you were assigned to carry 3 cubic meters of soil per day, and that was the daily plan assigned by your unit chief. And what did you do in order to complete this work quota? Answer. If I could not complete the 3 cubic meter work quota, I would be deprived of food until, and I had to continue working until 10 o'clock at night before I would be allowed to stop working and eat. Question. You also stated that you started working at 4 o'clock in the morning, and at night time you continued to work until 9 or 10 o'clock through the night. Did you have sufficient rest time in order to resume your work again? President, the Defense Council, Kung Samon, you have the floor. Kung Samon, thank you, Mr. President. From what I heard, the Civil Party confirms that by 4 o'clock the unit chief actually rang the bell, and it was not the time that they commenced working in the field. Deputy Co-Prosecutor, allow me to clarify that with the civil party. And Mr. Civil Party, what time actually did you start working in the morning? Answer, we would work whenever it was clear enough that we could see other workers. Question. Did you have to wake up when the unit chief rang the bell at 4 o'clock in the morning? Answer. The bell was rang at 4, and if anyone did not get up by that time, then the person would be whipped. Question. You went to sleep at 10 o'clock at night and had to wake up at 4 in the morning. Did you have sufficient sleep to continue working the next day? Answer, no. I did not have the actual strength to work the next day, but I had to force myself, otherwise I would be deprived of food. Question. You said in the unit there were both men and women, and were female workers required to carry 3 cubic meters of soil as men? Answer. Every worker had to engage in the 3 cubic meters work quota on a daily basis. Question in your response to the lawyer for civil parties that you had to carry the soil for a distance of 15 meters. Can you actually tell the chamber how many kilos of earth you put on each basket that you carried? Answer, the weight was about 30 to 40 kilograms. Question. On a daily basis, who actually engaged in doing the inspection in order to ensure that workers completed the daily work quota? That you and your group did? Answer, it was Unit Chief Wa who did that inspection. Question, you stated earlier that you will be deprived of food until such time that you completed your work quota, that is by 10 o'clock at night. And if you couldn't complete your work by 10 o'clock at night, were you still given food to eat? Answer, we would be given food to eat by 10 o'clock even if the work was not, or the quota was not completed. Question. Did you ever hear that some workers were accused of being lazy? Answer. There were workers who were accused of being lazy and they were deprived of gruel. However, workers who were sick were given gruel to eat. Question. Did you ever hear about any measure taken against any worker who was alleged of being lazy? For example, they were assigned to a separate unit. Answer, no. If For example, a worker was lazy, the unit chief would come and whip him and then chase him to go to work. Question. Also, in your response to the lawyer for civil parties, you made a request to visit your home, but it was not allowed. Were you given the reason that you were not allowed to visit your home? And no, they did not give any reason. They said that I was not simply allowed to visit home. Question. In your unit, was there any member who actually missed home a lot and without authorization, that person actually ran home to visit his or her home? Answer, no, there was no such case in my group. Question. In your case, you sought permission, but it was not granted, and you did not go as a result. And can you tell the court the reason why you did not go? Answer. I dare not go because I was afraid that I would be killed. If I was still stubborn and went, I would be killed by Angka. Question. And how did you learn that? Answer. It was spread through the unit chief during a meeting that if anyone did not obey Angka, the person would be taken away and killed. Question. At the Tribunal work site, were there any guards or soldiers who were watching over the workers? Answer. There were no soldiers. However, once in a while I saw a militiaman carrying a weapon and walking up and down at the work site. President, court officer, could you check? I think there is an alarm bell ringing or something. It seems there's nothing. And the Deputy Co-Prosecutor, you may continue. Deputy Co-Prosecutor, thank you, Mr. President. Now, on the seriousness of the work condition, did you ever hear or see any worker died from overwork or from starvation? I saw with my own eye that person died from starvation. However, that happened when I was at the plowing unit. The person was actually starving and begged for a piece of rice, but no rice was given, and the person actually died. And it happened in front of me. Question. What about those? Were there any workers who died from overworked? Answer. No, I did not see any. Question in your response to the lawyer for civil parties on the sleeping quarter. What kinds of necessities given to you at the sleeping quarter? For example, was a mosquito net, a sleeping mat, or a blanket given to you? Answer: no. There was no mosquito net, no pillow, no mat. We had to find means of sleeping by ourselves. For example, you could find a piece of mat and you actually slept on it, and other people actually slept on the ground itself. Question: during the time that you work at the work site, and was there any day that it rained or any night that it rained while you were sleeping at your sleeping quarter? Answer: yes. Sometimes it rained at night, and due to the patchy roof, the rain drops fell in, and we could not sleep. We had to sit up all night, and we had to still start working in the early morning the next day. Question: did you mean that your group members were soaked under the rain and that you could not sleep at night when it was raining? Answer: we were not allowed to rest the next day as we had to continue working despite the rain the previous night. Question: were there any toilets or any facilities that you could relieve yourself nearby your sleeping quarter or the workplace? Answer: no, there was no toilet or anything. Actually, people relieved themselves in bushes nearby. Were there insects or mosquitoes, or rather flies on site? Answer: if you talk about flies, there were swarms of flies, and you could actually see the darkness of flies on your bowl of gruel. Question: did you have access to drinking water or to bathe yourself at the work site? Answer: no. Water was transported by ox carts to the work site for rice cooking, and we had to go and wash ourselves in the nearby stream. Question: so there was no sufficient water on site, and the water had to be transported from elsewhere. Where was the water transported from? Answer: they would go and fetch water from any available stream or pond nearby the work site. Question: and was the water that you drank properly filtered or boiled? Answer: no. It was rather muddy, but we had to drink it. Question: since there was no sufficient water and no toilet facility, what happened to those female workers, for example, who experience their monthly cycle? Answer, I cannot tell you about that. Question, during the time that you worked at the Japan Modern work site, did you ever fall sick? Answer, yes, twice. Actually, I contracted fever twice, and I was merely given 2 tablets of rapid drop pellets. Question, so you had fever and you were given rapid drop pellets. And if you were sick of other diseases, what kinds of medicines given to you? Answer, no, I cannot tell you about that, but there was no proper medicines on site. Question, what about the medical staff? Were they experienced in terms of providing medical care? Answer, I did not know whether they were knowledgeable. However, the pellets that were given to us were in the shape of the rapid drops. Question, and how old were the medical staff? The ages range between 22 to 23 years old. They were female medical staff. Question, while you were working at the Modern work site, did you see any work-related accidents on site? Answer, yes. There was people nearby the place that I worked were digging the soil, and accidentally the hole hit the head of another worker and he was bleeding everywhere. Question, and where was the person sent for treatment? Answer, no, he was not sent anywhere but to the sleeping quarter to rest there, and then a female medical staff would attend to the wound. Question, do you recall if at the work site or at your sleeping quarter a loudspeaker was used or to make announcement or to play music? Answer, yes, a loudspeaker was used, and they play the revolutionary songs, including the victory of the 17th April Day. Question, besides songs played over the loudspeaker, was other information broadcast? Answer, no, besides songs there was nothing else played over the loudspeaker. However, a loudspeaker was used when workers were called to attend a meeting. Mr. President, I don't have any further question for this witness, and I'd like to cede the floor to my international colleague. And thank you, Mr. Civil Party. President, thank you. And the International Deputy Co-Prosecutor, you may proceed.
Thank you, Mr. President. Mr. Civil Party, I just have a few questions to follow up on from what my colleagues have asked you earlier. Can you please tell us how many people were in your mobile unit when you were working at the Trapang Tama Dam?
There were 70 workers in my unit, and my unit was known as the 100-man unit. And there were other, rather it was called big unit, and there were other units in the form of 100-man unit or 1,000-man unit.
And who was in charge of your 100-man unit?
There were other units and respective chiefs, and in my unit there were 70 workers, and we were under the supervision of the unit chief.
Do you remember the name of the unit chief?
No, I forget his name.
Other than Taval, who you've mentioned, and the chief of your 10-man group, Ra, do you remember anyone else at Trapang Tama who had supervisory authority?
Yes. There were unit chiefs at different levels, for example, 100-man unit chiefs or big unit chiefs, but I do not recall their names.
You mentioned earlier that when you were at Trapang Tama Dam, you were in Sector 5. Do you remember what zone Sector 5 was in?
It was under the northwest zone.
And did you know who was in charge of the northwest zone?
Answer. I do not know. I know only Tawal.
Were you aware of a time while you were in the northwest zone that people from the southwest zone took control?
Answer. Yes, I know. Yei Chaim.
And do you remember when it was that you were aware that people from the southwest zone had taken control of the northwest zone?
Answer. I cannot recall it well. What I can say is that it was in 1978. Ye Jaim was the one who came to arrest Tawal and my parents to be killed.
And how did you learn that Taval had been arrested?
Answer. People in mobile units said that Tawal was taken away and killed, and they said that those from the southwest were good people, and they came to replace the old cadre. After a period of time, Ye Chaim were even crueler than others.
Can you explain how Ye Cham was crueler than the previous persons in charge?
Answer. What I know is that after Ye Cham came to replace the previous cadre, many people died. Before that, not so many people died when Tawal was in charge.
Did your life as a worker get worse, better, or stay the same after the persons from the Southwest Zone took control?
Answer. Work quota remained the same. We were assigned to. I was assigned to complete 3 cubic meters of soil.
Thank you. Can you tell us how many times a day while you were at the Trapang Tama Dam were you allowed to eat?
Answer. At the beginning, we were allowed to eat 3 times a day. Later on, we were reduced to have only the thick gruel.
Later on, would you still eat 3 times a day?
Answer. No, the rice was running out, and later on we were allowed to have rice at lunchtime, and we received another meal in the evening.
So, am I correct in understanding that later on you would only eat twice a day, once at lunchtime and once in the evening?
Answer. Yes, that is correct.
While you were living in Preah Net Preah, were you ever asked to write your biography?
Answer. No. No biography was asked. No notebooks, no pencils at the time, nothing at all.
You referred to yourself earlier as a 17th April person. Can you explain what that means?
Answer. 17 April people were evacuated to live in Phra Net Phra district, and the local people there were named base people, and the newcomer would be named new people or 17 April people.
And how would people know that you were a 17th April person or a new person versus being a base person?
Answer. It is known by the way we speak, and people, I mean base people, spoke with their accent, so they would know that we were new people by our accent.
And who would refer to you as a 17th April person or as a new person?
The cooperative chief. The cooperative chief said that we were the 17 April people because we were new at the place, and 17 April people were allowed to have only gruel, not rice. Rice was reserved for base people.
Were there any other ways that 17th April people were treated differently from base people?
Answer. I'm sorry, I could not get your question.
You just mentioned that 17th April people would receive gruel, whereas base people would receive rice to eat. And I was wondering if there were other ways in which 17th April people were treated differently from base people.
Answer. Base people did not work very hard. They could tell the new people or 17 April people to work instead of them.
Were there a lot of new people working at the Trapang Tama Dam?
Answer. There were thousands of them.
Were you ever required to attend any meetings while you were working at the dam?
Answer. Yes. Sometimes we were called into a rally or a big meeting to alert us to strive in our work, and we were required to be in the meeting to make a commitment that we had to meet the 3 cubic meter of soil per day.
And who would speak at these meetings?
Answer. Unit chief, the big unit chiefs, chief of 100-member units, chief of 1,000-member units, they did not mention their names at the meetings.
And would they discuss anything else besides that you had to meet your work quota?
Answer. We were told to meet the work quota set by ANCA.
Were you aware of any people who were considered to be Vietnamese or to have Vietnamese ancestry that were working at the Trapang Tama Dam worksite?
Answer. I have never heard people talking about that matter at my work site.
Were you aware of any persons who were Cham who were working at the Trapang Tama Dam worksite?
Answer. Cham were living with us. They spoke with accent, and Cham people sometimes said they did not eat pork, and worker teased them because of that statement.
And from what you observed, were Cham persons treated any differently from other workers at the Trapang Tama Dam worksite?
Answer. At my worksite, nothing happened as you said. Perhaps something happened at other worksites.
You mentioned earlier that you were aware of people going missing. Were you aware of people going missing from your unit, or was it people going missing from a bigger group of workers?
Members from my unit or group disappeared. Eun disappeared. He was taken away and killed.
Did you see Un being taken away?
Answer. No, I did not witness. But I did not see him. He disappeared.
And why do you conclude that he was killed after he disappeared?
Answer. I have told the court already. I was, in one instant, I was told to get the string of the earth basket, and at that time I was told that I would be taken away and killed. So I was managed to make an escape. I told civil party lawyer already about this.
And were you aware of other workers other than Un who also disappeared?
Answer. I cannot recall all the names. Many people disappeared from time to time.
From the time that you were expelled from Phnom Penh until early January 1979, were you aware of any marriages that took place?
Answer. Yes, I was aware of the marriage. The men and women did not love each other at that time, and they were paired up and they were allowed to get married. 10 or 20 couples married at a time.
And these marriages that you're referring to, did they happen when you were in Kandal, when you were in Preah Net Preah, or in both? When I was at Spin Strain, I noticed there was a marriage. At that time, there were 5 men and 5 women. They were paired up and they were told to sit across each other. And in that ceremony, they were asked to stand up to make a commitment that they would get married. I was not forced to get married at the time, but I was there as a witness in the ceremony. And do you know who made the pairings of the men and the women and who led the ceremony? Answer: the unit chiefs. And what happened after the marriage ceremony was concluded?
Answer: I did not know what happened after the marriage.
Thank you, Mr. Sivaparty. Thank you, Mr. President. No further questions.
President, thank you. It is now convenient time for the adjournment because we still have only a few minutes. The chamber adjourn its hearings now, and it will resume its hearing tomorrow on the 28th July 2015, and it will continue. Mr. Sampon. After that, we will hear 2 TCW 858. Please be informed. Thank you very much, Mr. Sampon. The hearing of your testimony as a civil party has not come to an end yet. You are therefore invited to be here again at 9 a.m. Court officer is instructed to send Mr. Sampon to the place where he is staying at the moment, and please invite him back into the courtroom before 9 a.m. Thank you as well, Mr. Seng Untang, TPO staff. The chamber would like to invite you to be here again to support the civil party during the court proceeding tomorrow at 9 a.m. Security personnel are instructed to bring Mr. Nunchi and Kyosampon back to the detention facility of the ECC and have them return tomorrow before 9 a.m. The court is now adjourned.